Okay, I got her set up now. Let's try again. Take two. Take two. So, I'm just going to start over for those of you who are hearing this without understanding what's going on, especially if you're listening to the podcast and not watching on YouTube or on Facebook. I tried doing this stream with Monica and she was not having it. She was just, nope. So we can do it now because she's drifting off to dreamland. All right, so we're going to start with what we call the curse. All right, so Adam and Eve have eaten of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and we're about to read through and study the curse, or the curses. Listen to the previous stream or recording so that you can understand when I'm giving all of these quote unquote definitions, I'm giving synonyms to help us better understand what is being taught and said for us to learn and grow. So the Lord God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman. Enmity is hatred. And between thy seed and her seed. This is, not just the exact baby that you have, but the ongoing line. It shall bruise thy head. Talking about it, that would be the seed. So you could also say they. Or because this is, I believe, prophecy, you can say he shall bruise thy head, but it doesn't matter. The seed shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Okay, so bruise means exactly what we think it means. It means to have hurt to the point that you cause, tenderness. When you've got a bruise, you don't want to bump into anything. If you've got a bruise on your arm, you don't want to bump into the corner, rounding a corner, because that hurts. Or you don't want somebody to slap you on the arm. Hey, bud, how you doing? So that the seed is going to bruise your head. God is telling the serpent, you're going to bruise his heel. Another reason why you can use his is in this place of it shall bruise thy head, he shall bruise thy head, is because of this his heel. This is very specific, and we're not just talking about Eve's son. We are talking about Christ and Satan, and Christ having the victory. So Christ is going to bruise your head. This word head is, it's the Hebrew word translated into our English word head, but it runs along the same line as the word head, like I'm the head of the company. So it is some synonyms. It's defined as head, top, summit, chief, and front. And so this chief definition it's a different word, because in 1 Corinthians 11, where it talks about the man is the head of the woman, Christ is the head of the man, and so forth, it's from Greek to English in 1 Corinthians 11, but they both have the same definition of chief. Oh, I was going to try to get her bottle. I did it. I got her bottle. Okay. So, the other thing that I learned today that was really neat. So besides learning that head is not just talking about the physical head. It's talking about the top, the chief, the authority. Man, that is just so cool to think about Christ having authority over. And then thou shalt bruise his heel. This word heel can mean a footprint or a footstep, but it is also used in the sense of hinder part. So behind me, which of course is where the heel of the foot is. It's on the back side. And also when they were talking about the back of troops, the rear of the troop, this word could also be used. And both of these just make me very happy, just thinking about what those deeper meanings could be. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the woman again. You know, our end goal in this series that I'm doing is to get us to talking about the instruction in the New Testament of women's roles within the church, specifically women not teaching and or women keeping silent in the church. And we're going to get there. The reason we're starting all the way back in Genesis is because the New Testament references this. And so we need to know this part to understand that part. Okay? So now let's go unto Adam. Unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife. This is very significant understanding. Because thou hast hearkened. This word hearkened means not just to hear because you heard the voice of your wife, or not just because you listened to the voice of your wife, but specifically listen to obey. Because you have listened in the sense of I need to pay attention and listen to obey. Now God is saying, now I've got to establish some things. Okay. Unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife. This word voice here, actually the whole phrase, unto the voice, it's in the dictionary, it says from an unused root word or root meaning to call aloud. To call aloud. And so there was something, she didn't just use her voice in a sweet feminine way and he stood by and just listened. She got loud and he listened to obey. These are very important for us to recognize and understand. So because you have listened to obey to this loud call of your wife, and you've eaten of the tree, which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake, and sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. I'm going to come back to that in 1 second. Let me keep going. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. This idea that Adam did not have to work until this is not accurate. In Genesis 2:15, Adam is immediately instructed to dress and keep it. Keep it meaning to guard it, to keep watch over it, and to dress it means to keep it operating well, to keep it doing well. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground, for out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. Okay? So we've got one more to read, and that is Eve's. Unto the woman he said, this is verse 16, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Okay. This was the first pause And I spent days reading it, studying it, praying about it, talking to people who have been studiers of the word much longer than I have, who are better communicators of the word than I am. I just needed to know this. So, I fully believe that God's love for humanity is so great that he only works things for their good. In fact, he specifically can and does take the things that are wrong and work them for our good. Things that people do to us that are meant for evil. God's intentions of goodness for us are so great that he can take even what was intended for evil and work it for our good. And then furthermore, take the people who worked it for evil, those people who, quite frankly, were evil in their attempts to hurt me or you or us, and he can work things out for their good as well. That is how good God is at making things good. And I just do not think that God has this desire to be cursing people who fail, to be destroying people who fail. This idea that God is honestly, what comes to mind is Greek mythology, that God is this Zeus, type of character that is going to strike down everybody and everything. Now, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. To understand that God has that ability, that's the beginning of wisdom. But to live, what kind of relationship is it when you live with a person and do things because you're afraid of them? That's a terribly abusive relationship. If a wife is cooking for her husband, cleaning the house that her husband lives in, speaking kindly to her husband, whatever gifts she gives her husband, if it is all centered around her being afraid that he is going to backhand her, this is not, she's not doing those things for love. She's doing those things because she's afraid of the consequence that could follow if she does not. And that is not who God wants to be. That is not who he is. That is not who he ever intends to be. Listen, y'all. Listen to how good God is. Do you want to know how gracious God is? How gracious God is. He allows Satan into his heavenly places. The Satan. We know that's the case because God asked Satan, where have you been? And he says, I've been walking back and forth in the earth. And God says to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? And y'all, that is a God of grace. And we cannot comprehend that level of grace. We have somebody that speaks about us behind our back and we are done with them. And God is allowing Satan himself to engage in a conversation with the holy, precious, mighty God. Now, does God live in that way? I only know of that exact scenario happening the one time that we read about in Job. Now, I do know that there is some type of communication that continues or that God allows, because Satan was not afraid to come to him in his fast. Satan knew that Jesus Christ was God manifest in the flesh. He knew who Jesus was, and yet he knew there would be a conversation exchange. And also when right before Christ was crucified, Christ said to Peter, Satan desires to sift you as wheat. I've prayed for you that you fail not. So this gracious God, and we cannot take the grace of God that is active in our lives as a sign that we are doing everything perfectly. We don't need to be thinking about doing anything differently. We don't need to be seeking about doing anything differently. We don't need to be studying. Oh my word. If anything, for me, knowing God's grace is that vast, makes me want to be more cautious, not less cautious, more cautious. Because I know that God, all right, I'm a grandmother now, right? I've got Monica here. She's 3 months old. Y'all, the love I have for this baby is so huge. And it's the most amazing thing I've ever felt, ever experienced, ever. I cannot describe to you. And I don't need to keep going on. It's just the most amazing thing. But I'm no good for her. Because my grace for this child is to not get mad when she's being inconvenient and angry. Now, I'm not even talking about, she's a defenseless baby. She can't communicate. So the only way she knows how to communicate is by her crying. But I can tell the difference in her crying as, when she's asking for something, when she's pitiful, and when she's just mad. Like, I can tell the differences in those cries. And so, grandmas are not the ones who are supposed to raise the babies because we've got too much grace. And we'll end up doing what they call spoiling that child. And as much as I want to have Monica with me 24/7, I am aware that Monica's sleep habits would not be good if she were with me all the time, because I would let her everything she asked for. I would let her rule the day. I would let her do, this is why grandparents are supposed to. So with tying that in with the grace of God, God's love for us is so great that we have to be careful that he's not over babying us in his love and his crushing on us. God has a crush on us. He's just crazy about us, and we should be careful. So in my thoughts, so that's how extreme I think about God's love for us. That's the level, at least as best as my words can describe it, right, as I sit here. I believe God loves us so, so, so much. And so I was sitting and pondering these verses, and I was thinking, why in the world would God call bringing forth children a curse? Why is that a curse? Because having children is the most fulfilling thing. Why is it a curse? And also, thy desire shall be to thy husband. Why is that a curse? Look, this word desire, I was going to get to this a little bit later, but I'll go ahead and touch it now. Let's see where I wrote it down. This word desire means stretching out after, longing, craving. Wouldn't all marriages be better if that's how women thought about their husbands? That they were reaching, stretching out after them, longing for them, craving them. Why is that a curse? How is that a curse? And he shall rule over thee. Now, this is the one that we all can say, oh, there it is. There's the curse. But I hope I'm going to change your mind on that. I hope I'm going to change your mind on that. Okay. And then here's the other thing that I got to pondering when I was thinking about God's goodness and then these curses. Because you've hearkened to the voice of your wife, have eaten of the tree, which I command you, saying, not eat. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. For thy sake. For thy sake means out of consideration. In the interest of. There's something about this ground being cursed that is out of consideration for Adam. In the interest of Adam. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth. Thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread till thou return into the ground. So, he was already instructed to work before the fall, before they disobeyed God. So perhaps the curse is that you've got to work hard. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth to thee. And yet, this is what I was thinking when I was in that state of deep pondering of these verses. I know that men are miserable when they are not working. Retired men they have to work so hard at play because they hate not working so much. Men love to be at work, to work. Now, they don't love necessarily their bosses. They may not necessarily love their particular job, but to win the lottery and not work, I'm drawing a blank right now, but I cannot think of any man who has come into a windfall of money that actually was content to no longer work. A lot of times they'll end up forming a charity if they get that much money, and then the charity causes them to work from the dawn till set of sun. So, I'm just thinking, why do we consider this a curse? Why is this a curse? Why did God curse us with this? And I got in here, and y'all, I don't think God cursed us with these things. I don't think they are curses. There are 2 times in this passage about God bringing them to task over their disobedience. And it says the serpent is cursed, and it says the ground is cursed. In verse 14, it says that the serpent is cursed. And in verse 17, it says that the ground is cursed. But it doesn't say anything about a curse when it's talking to the woman, when God is talking to the woman and God is talking to the man. The ground is cursed for thy sake. For thy sake. Now, why do we automatically think of these things as curses instead of as God being good to us and giving us direction and an aid? Why do we think of them as curses? Well, for one, because it says, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow. Anytime the word sorrow is involved, that does not seem like a good thing. And this word sorrow means pain, labor, toil, hardship. Okay? So I'm going to multiply your sorrow. I'm going to multiply your difficulty and thy conception. I don't know if this is saying the conception is also multiplied. That to me is a bit more of a science question. I'd like to talk to a creationist who has an opinion about that. And then in sorrow, so again, we associate the word sorrow with things like a curse. In sorrow, thou shalt bring forth children. So in pain, you're going to bring forth children. But again, children are the joy of our lives. Children are a lifelong gift. And I do not believe God was in any way saying that bearing children was a curse. He was simply saying, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to curse you with this, but this is what I'm going to do. I will greatly multiply your sorrow. In sorrow, you're going to bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband. I do not believe that a woman's desire being to her husband is a curse. I think it's a help. I think it's a help to her that she would, where'd we have that verse written down? That she would stretch forth. Where is it? There it is. Stretching out after, longing for, craving. I think that's good for her. That's helpful for her. He shall rule over thee. Now that's the one where we for sure all feel like that is a curse. Let's, however, look at the creation of the male and the female. So, man was created, and then Eve was created. I'm looking for the notes I made on this topic. Oh, did I lay it over here on the side? Y'all got notes everywhere. Like they are everywhere. Everywhere. Genesis 2:20. Genesis 2:20. This is following God watching Adam, and it says God looked at Adam to see what he would call the animals, and that word to see, you can listen to a previous recording, but that to see has to do with being curious. Let's see how they respond to this. Kind of the way I do Monica, my grandbaby. I want to watch when I give her a toy. Yesterday I gave her an apple with chimes in it, and I just wanted to see what her reaction was going to be to it. So in Genesis 2:20, because there was not a helpmeet found for him, God made a help meet for him. God made a help meet for him. Here it is, to see, to look at, to okay, so this word helpmeet that God made for him, it means help, and another English word is succor. Now, this word succor means support in times of hardship and distress. The reason she was created was to give him support in times of hardship and distress. That was her reason for being created. And what had happened was, over here with this tree, she did not fulfill what she was created for, to be a support in times of hardship. She stepped up, she called with a loud voice, and he had to come over to listen as in a way to obey. And so God had to point out to them over here, after when God approaches them, he has to specifically tell her, he rules over you. I don't feel like this is a curse. I feel like God was giving her an instruction manual. Like, I love to put together furniture. It's a bit like putting together a puzzle. But you don't put together furniture properly without the instructions. At least I don't. I don't put together the same piece of furniture over and over and over. Therefore, once you learned the ropes, you got it. I put together, one hall tree and then one tree. I mean, not tree, one chair and then one bed. I do all these singular pieces. So I need the instructions. I feel like that's what this is when God says to Eve, he shall rule over thee. Our carnal way of thinking is to rise up in selfish ambition and say, ain't nobody gonna tell me nothing. Get full of attitude. If everyone is operating in their proper roles with love, as we go through this, I'm gonna talk more about how a man is supposed to be, how a woman is supposed to be. If we're all operating in the ways we are supposed to, this is not a curse. This is an aha moment. You're not supposed to be out there on your own, Eve. You're supposed to stick close to that husband because you're going to feel your best when you are doing what you were created to do. And that is to be a support in times of hardship and distress. You, Eve, are completely opposite of Adam. You are completely opposite of him. You each get on each other's nerves over what is completely opposite about you. And yet, what is completely opposite about you is why you are able to help each other. Of the Adams and the Eves in this world, the Adam or the Eve is going to be a big, big talker. They're going to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. At church, they're going to talk and talk and talk. They're going to, at parties, talk and talk and talk. And the other one is going to be the one saying, babe, we need to go. We need to go. And when you get in the car, you might be frustrated with each other. The talker might be the one saying, I still had some things I had to ask. Or the one saying, look, babe, we need to go, is the one saying, babe, you were taking so long. But you know what the talker is not possibly considering is that the person they're talking and talking and talking to may not want to be in that conversation as long as that talker's wanting to be there. And it's the helpmeet's job to say, babe, come on, let's go. She is helping him. She's helping him socially. She's helping him think about their family. I'm saying Eve is helping him, but it could be the opposite way. Whatever ways you are opposite are going to be the ways you frustrate each other. And in those things that frustrate each other, if you would deal with them in wisdom and peace and insight and understanding, you will find that those are the things that fill each other's gaps. It's amazing. And so I do not believe this line, he shall rule over thee, is a curse. I believe with all of my heart, it's just simple insight into how the creation will operate best, how you will be happiest, how you will function your strongest. Now, we're going to talk about why that's the case when we talk about men and their ruling there. I'm going to stop right now. I'll start another stream, actually probably in just a minute. I just don't want this recording to go any longer. God bless. Love you guys. Bye-bye.